let's start. I think I spoke a minute ago, but for people who have just joined us, Brand Breakthrough Live is a new live show that I'm doing just here on Substack, where I take a subscriber, it can be a free subscriber, you don't have to be a paid subscriber, that DMs me, messages me on Substack with a brand question that I think would have wide interest, which means that if I bring a guest on, their question is probably a question of hundreds of other people. So that said, I'm so excited to have Monica here with me today, and I'm going to turn the floor over to her to tell us a bit about why she reached out to me, and we'll take it from there.
Sure. So as many of you know, I have a speculative fiction serial that I have been posting on Substack and posted chapter 28 today. The book one is finished. It's a 3-book series, and I'm preparing to get it submitted to a potential agent. And I'm just, because I write so many different things, I'm starting to think through how do I position myself and just for visibility. So if the book does get picked up, how do I prepare for that? And what does that look like as I'm working through my brand moving forward? Because I do write a little bit of everything.
Right. And so I call Monica the unicorn because not only does she write about a variety of things, but she is one of the few people that I see on Substack that doesn't seem to be hurt by the way that she weaves things together. So I think what I found when I was looking at your profile, and you probably already know this, but your Substack, while eclectic, you reveal through your bio and through your writing a cohesive thematic territory, let's call it, which is around institutions, consent, memory, and the cost of being human. Does that resonate with you?
That's exactly right. So I would say that everything I write about, whether it is nonfiction, whether it's leadership or healthcare essays, whether it's personal reflections, it's all about the human experience and the institutions that surround us. And so I think that you will find a little bit of everything in every piece I write, because it's all about, I'm going to sound cliche, always doing the right thing. So doing the right thing for everyone, no matter where they come from, what their background is, and just being kind to people. So, and I think a lot of the experience I have in my career has really shaped and honed in my hope for making my voice heard.
Do you want to tell people what you do? Just to sorry to interrupt. Sure. I think just give them a quick background on what it is you actually do, so they can understand what you're saying now.
So I started my career in the cardiac cath lab, and then for the last decade, I have been at Duke Clinical Research Institute running large clinical trials focused on implementation science, which basically means making sure we get the guidelines into practice. So it's not enough just for the guidelines to be posted. If the providers aren't prescribing those medications or titrating patients, then they're not getting guideline therapy.
Right.
So I work with sites all across the country to help them put that into practice. And my specialty is cardiology, renal, metabolic, diabetes, and prevention.
Yeah, that's a wide field. And you are number 97 in, are they calling it health politics? I saw that on your profile this morning.
Yeah, I find that rising number a little bit of a tease. Sometimes I'm 13, sometimes I'm not on it. I didn't even realize I was rising today, so thank you for noting that.
Yeah, congratulations. I know I was
Thank
rising
you.
one day and I didn't even know what it was, and I was like 45 and I don't in marketing or something, and I said it should have taken a screenshot of it because by the time I figured it out, it was gone. But
I
that's
know it's
kind of fun.
it's like this thing is like a bleep on your screen for a little bit and then it disappears and then you're back there. I mean, I think the longest I've ever been on the rising list was like 3 consecutive days. But
Okay.
that was a while ago.
Good to know.
So,
I think mine was like 2 hours. I don't know.
yeah,
It
so I
was,
stopped paying attention because you're like, oh, I went from 13 to 96 or 98. And I just stopped paying attention because it's nice. Don't get me wrong. I think it's a nice little hoorah. But maybe one day I'll hit the bestseller list. That would be nice.
yeah, that would be awesome. Well, we're all here for that. So you write about basically not specifically your work, but you write like opinion and education pieces that are closely related to your work. And then you write speculative fiction and poetry and my personal essay. Am I missing any category at this point?
Sometimes I love an image prompt, so I tend to like jump on those image prompts that really speak to me.
Yeah.
But yeah, I write a little bit of everything, and I'm one of those people who probably would get bored if I wrote the same thing every day.
Yeah. So, what you contacted me about was kind of getting ready for an editor or publisher to look at you and basically look at the brand that you've built, because we all know that publishers want to sign writers who have a large following. And that's just kind of the nature of the industry at this point in time. And so we were talking a little bit about what an author brand would look like. And that, just for the listeners who are also maybe doing speculative fiction, either through Substack or somewhere else, this is not about building a brand around a single piece of work, a book of poetry, a novel, whatever it is. We're not building the brand around the novel. So in your case, is it Sorrel Ashwick? How do you say it?
Sorrow
Okay.
and Joy. Yeah.
Okay. That may be Monica's first book of fiction, but her personal brand needs to support the 3 books, the essays, the poetry, the creative work that follows it, and maybe even some of her health related articles. And so we really want to build an author brand. And so we said her Substack is eclectic. There was some question around whether that's the way it should be. What other questions did you have before I start talking about what I think you might?
No, I think you've nailed it.
Okay.
I don't think
Okay.
I have. I think as I can write,
Yes, we all
branding
know
is
you
not
can
my thing.
write.
Branding is not my thing. So I started panicking after reading several of your articles, going, wow, I don't, I mean, my brand is me, right? That's how I look
Right.
at it, that I am my brand, but how
Yes.
do I convey that to others? Because it makes me stressed out, honestly.
Don't be stressed out. So everyone already has a brand, whether you've been intentional about it or not. And if you're writing on Substack, you have a Substack brand, which may or may not be the same as your general brand. So if you have a business, for example, and you've built a brand around your business and you as the leader, you don't necessarily transfer that to Substack unless you're a household name or very, very well known, or you import your list, right? Which I don't know too many people who have done that. I have not done that. And so you're basically starting from scratch, which is really interesting because you get to play and just see what's going on. But for someone who, like, let's just say Monica, who has a job, is well known in her industry. If she were building a brand around what she does, it would be different than building a brand around her creative writing. But if she's building a brand around her as an author, it can encompass the work that she's doing. If that sounds confusing, just kind of hold it loosely and accept that it's true as we move forward. And we can always come back to that later. So I think that one of the questions you had was, should you separate your fiction, whether in a separate Substack or a tab, basically a category within your Substack? And so I think the answer is you keep your one Substack, because why? People have subscribed to you knowing that you're writing about all these things. And if you moved it to a separate publication, you'd be starting over from scratch. But what I do think you can do is pull it out and have a tab. And there is a way to do that. And we can talk about that offline. But you can have a tab and just have that pull. And I don't think you have that at this point, correct?
I don't. I have like a landing page for Sorrel that has links to all of the chapters, and
Okay.
that's pinned on my main page.
Okay. So we can do it so that you have different buttons, just like, like say mine, it has my podcast there. So if you go to my articles, you will no longer, for a while you did, but you'll no longer find my podcasts under my articles. But if you look at the top, it says, I can't remember if it says podcast or if it says brand for good. You can click on that, and that's all my podcasts. So I envision something similar for you. So people, your whole list will still get updates when you publish a new chapter. But if people who are just coming into your world want to read the entire book, they can just go to that tab, scroll down to the beginning, and start reading it, which will make it easier for them to find it and get involved. Because we all know Substack, you go in and someone who's been writing for more than a year, or someone who writes a lot, it can be hard to, like, I've done it where you're like scrolling, like, when did they write their first article? What was that about? Where are they coming from? So I think that would be a really smart first step. And then you could decide, does everything else stay together? Or do you maybe want to do that with a couple other categories? So you could have a category that's, these are random, but let's just say one is institutions and power. And that could be where your health politics type articles are, your essays on leadership, consent, systems, whatever you think would go in there. You could do memory and meaning, and under there could be your memoir, your poetry, things like that, even other creative nonfiction. And then you could do another, well, I don't know if you'd want to do this yet, but if you hadn't published so much of your novel already, you could have started under like imagined worlds or speculative fiction and had multiple things there. But I think at this point in time, Sorrel deserves its own, the book deserves its own, I don't want to say tab, I guess. I don't know what those are called. I need to get up with
Yeah,
this lingo.
I think it's a tab. I would call
Okay.
it a tab.
Yeah. And then you could, once the book is published, then you could turn that section into like book one. You could call it book one. And then you could also be posting updates. Like, I have my tour calendar, and this is where I'll be speaking to promote the book and other things like that. And then you could conceivably start a new tab with speculative fiction. I don't know that you'd publish the novels 2 and 3 on Substack, but that would be up to you. But you could think about it that way. And this is like making the minimum change so that it's not a complete overhaul. So you can preserve the audience you have, the authority that you've already built, 1,500 subscribers, your ranking in health politics, You could maintain all of what's good while also gradually teaching readers to see you as a fiction writer. So I like that you're diverse. As I've said many times, I'm not sure how you do it. If you ever figure out how it worked for you, you should teach that. Um, but I think that the health and politics work is really important as well. And I also think that you could use that as a differentiator in your fiction. So I think an author who understands institutions and power and autonomy, consent, and the human consequences of systems has a compelling foundation and a specific eye that you bring to speculative fiction. So it makes you unique as a writer. And in branding, we're always looking at what is different about me? What do I bring to my writing that other authors do not? And so then your nonfiction can become the evidence of your emotional and intellectual subjects that your fiction explores. Does that resonate?
It actually does, because anybody who's, I don't know how many of my sorrel readers are listening to the live, but they often mention that they can see how I'm pulling that in. And I think Sorrel's story kind of resonates with people because she starts as a baby, right? So they're following her through this process and what she has to deal with. But my background in healthcare and systems, or my frustration thereof, comes through in the book. And that, I think that's what makes the story work, because it's not forced.
Yeah, I love that. And I think that's a really important point that I'd like to underscore for people on this, that whatever you write, whether it's creative nonfiction, it's fiction, it's essays, a lot of times people want to shed a former identity to take on a new one, when in reality, the background that you have, the experience that brings you to where you are, is what makes your work special. And so owning that and saying, and rather than I was this, but now I'm becoming something different, is I have all this background and all this stuff, and I'm bringing that lens to my writing. And so here's what you can expect to see here, or here's how it shows up. And I think that's really interesting. I think, that would be something if you were to do a live and talk about the influences for Sorrel and where you pulled thoughts from. I think people would be, if you guys would be interested in listening to that, put a me in the chat and let her know, because I think one of the great things, I'm getting lots of hearts. Yay. Okay.
Hi, everyone. Hi, my fans. I love them.
I think that we want to know how writers think. And so, you may have a writer that you really admire and your style is completely different, but you'd love to know how their mind works. It's the same thing in business. I did some business like coaching, consulting for a year with 10 different business owners, and every business was different. But as they would bring up problems, we could all like bring our own lens from our own business to how that unique problem in their industry could be addressed through things that we learn through our industries. And I know the same is true with writing. So things that that informed your writing and how you think may trigger something for someone else, a positive trigger here, to be careful using that word. Might, wake somebody up to go, oh, wait a minute, I could take this experience and bring it into my writing. So I think that's what is so special and what you have so beautifully exemplified in your work.
Thank you. That's very, very kind. It happened by accident.
That's great. Are there other social platforms that you are active on?
So active. I am on it as an active member participating. So Facebook just gets my cross posts from my Substack. I keep that one open because my family lives on the other side of the country. So it's my way of seeing all the family photos, and we have like group chats on there. So Facebook is for that purpose. I'm not active there. I do have a LinkedIn, which I use professionally and network with other co-authors and
Right.
people in research and healthcare. So
That makes sense. That makes sense. And you had asked me about having a website, which I think is a good thing to consider for any writer. Just reserve your name. You don't even have to build the site right away, but build your name or reserve your name. Add a .com if you can, because .coms are still the number one extension. And then you have it, and you can build out a single landing page. You don't have to go all crazy. I'm going to do an endorsement, but I am a big believer if you're not going to go all in on WordPress or, oh my gosh, I'm going to blank on the one that I'm using right now. But anyway, Squarespace is very easy. They have beautiful templates. You can set it up. Most people can set it up themselves. If you can't, you can get someone to help you with it. And then when you're ready to work with a designer or a writer or whatever, then you can do that. I do a lot of professional copywriting for websites.
mhm.
I'm working on one right now. Um, Writers can write their own websites. It just depends on what you want to do with it. There is kind of a structure to writing a website, but I think done is better than perfect. And so reserving your name and the domain makes a lot of sense. And then putting up something simple when you're getting ready so that you're ready to have that linked, ready to go. And you can put other
I
things
was
on
also
there too.
thinking, because I have, so my poetry kind of spans different topics as well. So some of them are very personal, some are about grief, some of them are about just being a good person. And so I started thinking, and it was kind of after we started having this discussion, if you have a website that you can actually offer, what are they, little ebooks, right? And
Yes.
and and I hadn't,
E-magnets.
yes, I hadn't even thought about that until we started really kind of talking about the live and what my questions were, and I was like, oh, it still feels overwhelming. I Not as much because I'm learning, right? But it still feels like, oof,
Well, we're
it's
all
really
still
hard.
learning, right? We're all still learning as we expand, and growth only comes on the other side of fear, to be very cliche. I think you need a website. I will also take this opportunity to stand on a soapbox. There's four kinds of media, and Jeannie Dietrich came up with this. It's called the peso model, which means you have paid, which is anything you pay for, boosted social media. Now AI is allowing you to advertise. We're not even going there today. But anything that you pay for, that's the P in peso. E is earned. So it's when you are interviewed by someone on a Substack, on a podcast, someone writes an article about you in a publication, that's earned media. The next one is shared. So when someone shares something you've written, usually social media or Substack. And then the last one is actually the most important, and that is your owned media. That means if every platform went away tomorrow, what would you have left? It would be your website and your email list. So if you're not exporting your subscriber list at least once a week, please start to do that. You want to keep track of your subscribers. If Substack went away tomorrow, whether it was for a week, a month, or forever, you would have all the people that wanted to hear what you could write. You could start your own website. You could message them. You could move your articles. That's another thing. You want to save what you're writing so that you have folders so that you could recreate it if something happened to that. And that's why owned media is so important. But there's times you might want to say something to your Substack subscribers that you don't want to be an article. And so if you have your own domain, you can send out an email and say, "Hey, I was thinking about this today. Just wanted to share it with my subscribers." There's so many benefits to that.
That's a great idea. And I have to be honest, I think it's been, I don't know, maybe 2 months since I exported my subscriber list, and I am way behind on exporting published
Okay.
essays. And I know I need to do it. I was really good about it in the beginning, and then you get busy and you kind of get into a rhythm, and it became one of those things. But I do think about, I would have a nervous breakdown if Substack just crashed and we lost all of our data.
Right, right. And so I'm in PR, and we always start with, well, what's the worst thing that could happen? And knowing that it probably would never happen, but also knowing that if it did, you would feel so good about taking those steps. So, yeah. Did you have any other questions for me that you can think of?
I think it would be really interesting to hear from your perspective as you were thinking about your own branding and starting this live. What inspired you to do that? I think the story is so good. I want everyone to hear that. And so I would love if you would share your experience.
Oh my gosh. Well, I hope I tell it the same way I did the first time, because we know our stories evolve. I have always had people that reach out to me that I know can't afford to work with me. And I think what I said to you, Monica, was in early 2025, I decided that it was time to do my legacy work. And what is my legacy work going to look like? And as I explored that in a lot of 2025, I was also really busy with business. And I made some things, I changed the podcast up, I did some of those things. I also gave up a service that was making me a lot of money. So I told clients I was no longer offering that as a standalone service. And then I started looking at Substack, deciding I was going on Substack, which I did in February. And I decided Substack was my legacy project. So how can I serve people? I can publish essays based on what I know that address relevant issues that I'm seeing at a point in time. I can help people by using the 4 decades of work that I've done in journalism, in PR, in conversion copywriting, in consulting, to really help them build their online reputation so that they attract the people that they want to serve. And then people were reaching out to me with like little questions here and there. And I thought, you know what? It would be so fun. And I hate being on video. I hate being on video. So it was a little bit of a leap of faith for me. But what if I brought people on live, people that had branding questions that I knew other people would have as well? And so authors on Substack, like, that is not a rare thing. There's a lot of people writing here that want to be published, want to have a book. And so how do you build a personal brand so you're ready for that? But it's just really, it's from service. Like I'm really looking to just share what I know and hopefully help other people rise. I'm not worried about vanity metrics. It's nice to have more people reading your work. Sure, it feels really good, but I would rather, and I think I posted this last week, I'd rather have 100 people that are reading my articles and really love what I'm writing than have 10,000 people who subscribe but don't open the emails. So is that kind of what I said to you? Is that?
It is. And I love that. And I think if there's anybody on here who hasn't subscribed to Lorraine, she also writes poetry, which she tried to hide, and I pushed her out of her shell.
You did.
and I think that's what is so interesting about Substack. Everyone accepts whoever we are, whatever it is we write about. And for me, Substack has been, first, I started December 2nd. And I never in my wildest dreams thought I would have 1,500 subscribers. So thank you for that, everyone. But the thing that I find even more meaningful than that number, right? Because it's not the metric, it's the relationships I have developed with all of the people. And I, like you, love helping people and learning from others and watching people grow. And I don't mean in the numbers. When I have people who subscribed really early and I have watched their writing evolve, I know my writing has evolved. And I think that's something really unique to this platform, that in growing ourselves, we're building and growing others, and that support system makes it work. And I think that's why I keep coming back. I think others are coming back for that reason too, because it's funny. I think my mom has read maybe one of my stories. She gets them all. She tells me they're in her inbox, but she hasn't read them, which is probably okay because she would critique them. But but people on here help your stories evolve, help your writing evolve. And here you are helping us learn about branding. And for me, that is not what I do. I am not a brand person. And so when I think about that, it's like one of those things, you have to do, but you don't really want to do it, but you have to. So it's nice to have somebody who is sharing your gift with all of us.
And I think you're right that that is what makes Substack special. People are very forthcoming, very sharing. Someone asked in a thread a couple weeks ago about, I worry that I'm sharing too much of what I know and no one's going to want to work with me. And I said something to the effect of, never be afraid to teach, never be afraid to share. You can tell people what you know. It doesn't mean, you can tell someone who is, let's say Seth's here, changing a tire. I can tell you step by step. Is that person going to be able to execute it flawlessly? No. But are you helping them? Yes. If they could afford to pay you. I remember one time I paid a guy, it was some car that was not mine. He was like, can I help you? Can I change your tire? I'm like, no, I know how to change a tire. My dad taught me. And I was in a dress and he goes, let me change your tire. So I said, well, can I give you some money? He said, no. I gave him $10. But sometimes it's going to be worth paying someone the $10 to change your tire. And other times you can learn enough to do it. And I've told people many times, my podcast is a lesson in branding. You could go back and listen to every episode, learn and implement and create a brand. Is it going to be the same as working with me and having me pull things out of you? Like, it's like brand therapy, right? In the way that, you learn what is really inside of someone, and then you decide how much of that you want to share, but really aligning with your values, what you believe, and telling people enough about you so that they understand what informs your positions in your writing. And it's one of the greatest gifts that I can, that I have, to be able to serve people in that way. And so I love Substack. I love what I'm learning from other professionals and other writers, and you getting me into I started a whole second Substack because you got me to write a poem. So there we go.
I guilted you? Is that, or
No,
voluntold you?
inspired me. So it's been so fun. And to anyone listening, find your people, find the people that are going to read what you write and you read what they write, and support each other. And I think it's great. When I talked to Malin last week, she talked about two people that were following her, reaching out and giving her loving feedback, like, hey, you may not want to do this. We should all be here for that. Not for the trolls, but for the people who are on the field and want to see us succeed.
That's right. Absolutely. I thought of a question.
Okay.
I forgot to ask you. So we talked about how I can structure it. How do I decide when I'm thinking about branding me, right? We talked about where to put it, but what does that look like when you're talking to a client about their brand, their logo, whatever that might be that is unique and identifies their brand? Where do you start?
You start with what they believe. What do you believe about yourself? What do you believe about your industry that maybe isn't the norm, right? And so I don't believe in, I could say, back when dancing on reels and pointing at words that weren't there was all the rage. I don't believe that for me, using social media for entertainment is on brand for me. Using it for education like this, yes. Um, what do you stand for? What do you stand against? What is your vision for the work that you're doing? Where do you want to go? Where's your North Star that's guiding you?
I
And then,
love that.
yeah, and then we go into how do you do that on a day-to-day basis? What is your purpose? So that's part of the identity piece. So a lot of identity work. What is your purpose? Like, what are you here to do? Which is a little different than your vision. Your vision is, what would you create if you fulfilled your purpose?
Ooh, that's really good.
And that's just the
Um,
identity part. So then there's like two other parts to it. But those are the questions that I would encourage everyone to think about and sit with.
and when you were deciding on your name, brand, and belief, um, tell us about that.
Well, my company is called Prosper for Purpose, which means do well by doing good. So I use my business as a force for good. We're a certified B Corp. So I don't just say that. We jump through a lot of hoops every 3 years to recertify. Brand and belief came from, I wanted to do writing that I wasn't doing on my blog, and things I wasn't talking about on my what do I want to say, on my podcast. And so um, I thought that I want people to know that I'm talking about branding, but I also want to talk about what I believe, which is the first part of creating your brand. Like, what do you actually believe about what you're doing? So you might have a different belief structure for your professional work than you do for your writing. What do I believe? And then a big part of the brand is the promise. And so I was thinking about, what am I promising people when they read from me? They're going to learn about building a brand, and they're going to
Mhm.
learn what I believe, the belief behind what I teach, because no one teaches branding the way I teach it, because I don't follow the formula that most agencies follow. I came up with my own process based on how I branded my agency, which was very similar to me, but it's not me, right? And so there's that little bit of healthy distance that allows room for the employees that I brought in, so that it could be them as well. Did that answer your question?
It did, and I think one of the things that you and I connected on early was the way that you build frameworks, and frameworks are kind of my thing in the science world, right? So it's like you were speaking to the geek in me, and I love that you've created your own framework for doing this, because it makes it easier for people like me who are visual and creative thinkers, right?
Right.
To hear the way you ask questions, and that has been really eye-opening for me. So
Thank you.
thank you for that.
Yeah,
I think someone asked a question.
I was trying to look for that too, just out of curiosity. Where did the North Star question come from? Because I asked that a lot too. Um, I mean, I started branding, let's see, my agency will be 14 in January. And so, I mean, North Star is a term that's not unusual. You hear people talking about their North Star in different ways. So, I just brought it into branding and said, okay, what is like the belief and the purpose that guides you, and consider that your North Star. And the reason that I talk about that is, I've worked with so many organizations that get these great opportunities, but they're not aligned with what they say their purpose
Right.
is. and they're not aligned with what their vision is for the, oh, but we could make money doing this. Yes, and you could lose money because you're not facing your North Star. You're not following. You really have to put some blinders on and say, unless it doesn't appear in the path that I have chosen to move forward on, I'm not going to entertain it. Unless you tell me it's all about money and all I'm going to do is follow the money, in which case you're not my client. Go and go forth and prosper, but you're not my client. My clients, are doing something different. So that's where the North Star came from. And anyone who has questions, that's what I'm looking for. Send me a DM if you're a subscriber. One of the things I'm going to do, one of these episodes will be a roundup where, there's enough different questions where I'm just going to go through them. I'll be like, Brand Breakthrough Live this week is 20 questions that you guys have DM'd me, because there are a lot of like pieces, parts of questions. So that's kind of where we are on that. But I love doing this. I'm not feeling terrible being on video, because I can look at you and not look at me, those solo videos.
We have all of our friends here.
Yeah, we have all our friends here.
We have
a friendly audience. So thank you so much. Hi, Kelly Reeves. I haven't seen you in a while. So this has been really lovely. Anything else that you want to say, Monica?
I just want to say thank you for having me on your live. I had a blast, and this has been really fun. I also want to thank everyone that joined today, because I think it's an important topic. And as writers, I think we get stuck in the weeds sometimes. And for me, I didn't start thinking about that till you and I started having discussions. And then I started panicking, like, I don't even know how to do that. So thank you.
Yeah, I'm sorry. And I know we had another conversation and you were like, I'm not going to do that right now. And that's okay.
No, but I think that's the beauty of this place, because we are introduced to people who specialize in different things, and we can collaborate and we learn from each other. And that's just magic.
Yeah, it is. It is. So thanks for sharing your magic with us. Everyone go check out Monica Leyva. And if you're interested in submitting a brand question, subscribe to Brand and Belief and shoot me a DM. And I'll see you next time on Brand Breakthrough Live. Thank you so much.
Thanks, everyone. Have a great day.
Bye-bye.